don't think shit, stink pink gators. My Detroit players, Tim's for my hooligans in Brooklyn. That's dead right, if the head right, Biggie there, every night. Papa been smooth since days of under rules. Never lose, never choose to. Bruise, cruise, who? Do something to us. Talk, go through us. Girls want to us, wanna do us, screw us. Who us? Yeah, Papa and Pump. Close like Starsky and Hutch, stick to clutch. Yeah, I squeeze 3 at your cherry M3. Bang every MC easily.
Take that.
Recently,
am I number one?
ain't saying nothing, so I just
You got me at number one?
Come on.
Cubans with the Jesus piece. With my piece. Packing, asking who want it. You got it, nigga, flaunt it. That Brooklyn bullshit.
Happy Friday, motherfuckers. We're free.
For now.
What's going on, everybody? Greg Medford from Greg's World. World According to Greg. What are we calling this thing? Go in there with Greg. We need to put that up above the door so I can be middle-aged retarded. I'm Greg. Going there with Greg. What's happening, everybody? Happy Friday. We're going to do a couple things. We're going to do a movie review this afternoon. The movie review, what's the name of that movie, Jeff?
City of Lies.
City of Lies. This is a great movie, kind of about gangster rap and stuff that happened out in L.A. when Biggie Smalls was killed. And then we'll just talk about the movie a little bit. We don't want to give it away, but worth seeing. And then the main body of our national critique today, our commentary of the day, is going to be a cautionary tale. Are you ready to hit it, Jeff?
I am ready to hit it.
Okay, let's rip it, man. Get us over on 2, would you, Jason? Yeah. All right. I'm going to take a sip of my drink. I'm going to dive. So, Jeff, you and I talk about this all the time. For those of you who don't know, this is Jeff. He's our sales business development consigliere. It actually says consigliere on his door.
That's fantastic.
I have nothing on my door, and on his door in gold leaf, it says consigliere. Yeah. That's the best office door title ever, right?
Yeah.
We talk about the politics of the country all the time. It's like lunch chat all the time. Whenever we're not working, we're talking about this stuff. And I was thinking today, we got a couple things going on. We got a group of people writing laws like they have a mandate. And they're passing laws like they actually have, which is they're not passing much because they don't have much of a lead in anything.
Right.
And the White House is essentially empty.
Right.
So they're placating him, letting Grandpa roll around like he's still doing something. You know, like, hey, could you open up this fucking stack of mail?
Right.
And in the back, do you know the name of the chief of staff?
I do not.
The most fucking powerful man in the United States and in the world, arguably.
Right.
We don't know who the fucking dude is.
Right.
Wasn't elected. Is it Jill?
It could be.
Is Jill the most powerful person in the world right now?
Most likely.
We have an unelected Politburo running the fucking country with an old dude who got lost at the White House. He couldn't find it. I mean, he went outside to pissed in a bush. They didn't know where he was going. They led him around.
That sounds like me in Vegas 10 years ago.
I wanted to talk today, as we break on this Friday, if we have any lefties who happen to pop in and listen to this madness, I wanted to talk about a cautionary tale. And the cautionary tale is this. Everything that unhinged people enact comes back around to chop off their balls or chop their head off. So right now, you know, and I was talking about this, I was chatting about this with my dad, actually. I would say the part of the Democrat Party that's running the party is the uber left. It's that Ocasio-Cortez nutbag. So there's a power struggle going on between the oldsters and the youngsters, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
What do you think about I think the rules, the laws, the bills that they're proposing are the most radical, most ridiculous we've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. They certainly have an agenda, and we'll see how far it goes.
So my dad says to me, what are we going to do? I said, Dad, here's the deal. If you come to me and say, Greg, what'd you do to change the country? Or Jeff, what would you do to change the country? We got like, okay, I would do like a 10-year sunset clause. You've heard a couple of my propositions.
Yeah.
I would do 2-year limits for senators. 12 years is enough. I would do 3 terms, 6 years for congressmen. That's enough. A little over half a decade, go away.
Yeah.
And then if someone said, okay, Greg, we're going to make you in charge and you get to do this. And then some some people from the opposing side of the aisle came to me and said, hey, Greg, if you do this, we're not going to have seasoned legislators. We're not going to have this. We're not going to have that. I can see this problem when we have too many junior people and not enough experienced statesmen actually doing the craft of state. I might go, do you have any data on that? I wouldn't go fuck off. I'd be like, well, okay.
Yeah, convince me.
Yeah, convince me.
Right.
Like, I was telling my dad, I said, look, the problem is, he says, why do liberals keep smashing us like this? I go, it's because there's an assumption that we're trying to propose something sane and they're trying to propose something sane, and that there's some ground that we give because we're sane, trying to be rational to meet somewhere in the middle. I said, but they're proposing stuff that's insane.
Right.
So insane people, they don't understand the art of compromise and they don't doubt themselves because they're right.
Right.
It's like faith-based. So my dad's like, well, so what's going to happen? I said, well, I mean, hopefully a whole lot of nothing's going to happen because they're awful. But it was this weird paradigm I was thinking about conservatives. We compromise all the time because we are sitting there, if you and I had a chance to legislate, we'd be trying to do good for the country.
Yeah. Two simple things, right? And I'm not the original creator of this. I think it was Warren Buffett, but term limits, and if they had to abide by the laws that they enact upon us, would clean up a lot of the mess overnight, quite literally.
Sure. Also, they shouldn't get treatment that we don't get.
Right.
I know you're going to get cocktail parties and stuff that we don't get. That's part of the deal, right? But you shouldn't get special retirement and special insurance. That's all outside the rules.
Right.
It's fucking crazy.
It is.
But there's this assumption that we've been naive as conservatives. We've been naive for a long time, thinking, well, the other side, they're my aunt, my uncle, they're Democrats. They want what's best for the country. But who's running the crew are nutters. They're asking for crazy stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So if your wife said to you, hey, I want 7 Maseratis in the garage and we need a 100,000 square foot house, and you live in a 5,000 square foot house and she drives 1 Maserati, the conservative is negotiating halfway to crazy whenever we negotiate.
Right.
Because they're fucking nuts. and they're getting half of crazy every time they get their way.
Right.
So what's the solution? How do we get out of it?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, we talked about voting them out, vote with your dollar or vote with your vote. That didn't seem to work real well. I'm interested to find out what's going to be the outcome. I mean, we saw the AZ audit results, but what's going to be done about it? And then I just read something earlier this morning of what's going on in Georgia and Delaware and other states to come. So we'll see.
What did you think of the audit? It felt to me like it was, it seems to me like everybody said there's a bunch of little errors and it's always been like that and they're always there.
Yeah, I think, I read the executive summary from top to bottom, and, the first thing they tried to do was discredit the entity that was conducting it, right? The Cyber Ninja guys. And they seem.
And then it kind of validated, and then, we take that back.
There's a whole lot of discrepancies. Any one of the pieces from the executive summary are enough to probably take action on. I'm not saying decertify the results, and again, some of this has become a distant memory from several days ago when I read it, but there's definitely things that were in there that were voter integrity and other types of issues that give me pause, like it should everyone else in Arizona, about was it a fair and an accurate election, irrespective of who won.
If you say the house is dirty and somebody, and so you turn on the lights and there's dirt in the corners and dog hair fluffed up and there's ghost turds everywhere, and somebody says, oh, that's just normal.
Right.
Let's turn the lights back off.
Yeah.
That seems to be kind of what's going on. And I just don't buy it, not for a goddamn minute.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's enough to change the election, but if we found a bunch of porosity and a bunch of inaccuracy in this day and age of digital perfection, God damn it, we ought to be able to get closer.
Sure. I mean, we deserve it.
I was actually kind of happy by the results. I expected there to be 10 little things where there's sloppiness. I just expected it because we went from counting paper with volunteers, 15 years ago to digital shit.
Right.
I expected there to be some messiness. The Democrats would have served themselves better all along if they just said, yeah, do your count. We want to watch. Right. Do your count. Do your count. If it's that good and that fucking secure, do your count. I was glad we didn't see a bunch of server meddling and vote switching that had gone on. And it doesn't seem like they found much of that. They've maybe found some bad ballots. Maybe they found some possibly photocopied ballots, right?
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem like it maybe is enough to change the outcome. But it's still worth fixing because, all right, we see it now. Let's fix it.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely needs to be fixed for moving forward. Because if you lose integrity in that, what do you have integrity in?
Right. It makes guys like you and me not want to go to the ballot because, like, what the fuck is the point? I'm at work and I'm busy, and that's a waste of goddamn time.
Right.
So the outcome really ought to be, like, I was actually kind of happy. No big, I knew there was going to be sloppy stuff. I'm not naive about that. And I was pretty cool. I'm glad it doesn't say the exact opposite of the election, because then what?
Right.
The fact that
then we'd be out in the streets.
Right.
Yeah.
The fact that it's reasonably reaffirming, I go, oh, okay, well, everything's working. And you know what? It's fair for us to ask.
Right.
When it's gotten against the law to ask anything, you're an unpatriotic fuck if you ask. Like, how about this lieutenant colonel that's thrown in prison right now?
Right.
Crazy.
Yep.
And the guy didn't say someone's a moron. He didn't say anything. He said someone should be accountable. He just lost 13 Marines. Someone should be accountable. We just lost young Marines and servicemen in this, and women in this thing. God damn it. Who made this dumb call? We all knew this is dumb. Why are we doing this? That's pretty fair.
Right.
He didn't go to a political rally.
Right.
You're not allowed to go to do anything political in uniform or anything like that. But I know I know you kind of lose some of your First Amendment rights when you go in the military. You sign them away. But since when is asking for accountability become something you put someone in jail for?
Yeah. That's one of the main pieces of this that's unfortunate. It's criminal. It really is, because then what comes next? That's the thing I think about. I'm in a different situation than most, and at the end of the day, you think about what matters most to you. You've got your family, obviously the people that are closest to you, dear friends, and then at the end of the day, if you can't have confidence in the process and the vote and the count, then what do we really stand for?
Right.
And all the and this has been said better than I'm going to say it now, but all the people who've come before us, what were those sacrifices for? Just it's fucking crazy.
You can't have just because you disagree with people, you can't have them disengaged, because disengaged people, they'll blow up buildings and they'll fucking kill people.
Yeah.
And especially, like, if you disengage, I mean, look right now, communists are feeling disengaged. As well they fucking ought to be.
Right.
And they're burning down buildings for the last couple of years and no one said shit.
Yeah.
They're not even putting those people in jail.
Right.
The January 6th folks, they're in jail, no trial.
Right.
I mean, there's an abandoning of principles here that's unbelievable to me. And this was my cautionary tale for you if you're a lefty, or if you know people that are lefties, or maybe a talking point. The holidays are coming up where we get to sit around with people that we're unbelievably related to. Like, how the fuck am I related to some of these people?
We all have those.
And
thankfully, I've pissed enough of them off that my circle's pretty small.
Yeah, most of them don't invite me to anything.
And we're in alignment, yeah.
But we're gonna get a chance to intermingle with our family members. And here's the cautionary tale. Right now, they're using politics to leverage power and to purge out the government. And right now it's conservatives, and they're setting a precedent. These are boomerangs that come back around when you break constitutional accepted norms, when you break into the state of human beings since July 4th, 1776. The state of human beings tends towards liberty. It tends towards freedom. It tends towards self-expression. It tends towards individual greatness. It has. You look at what's happened around the world. You look at the acceleration of technology. You look at everything that's gone on. The natural state of humans is to not be ruled by an elite royal class.
Right.
Because they've been falling like dominoes for a couple hundred years. And then you have this anomalous rise of communism, right? This boomerang of oppressing a group of people because you disagree with them and it happens to align with your means at the moment, this will be used as a precedent to oppress the left as well. Because whoever's in power abuses it.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and they've talked about it just with they're trying to break the filibuster, saying, hey, you go down this path and change some of these long-standing, protocols that we've had. Your time will come.
Right. You won't be in power forever.
Right.
And they're trying to do what they did in California, change the rules enough they can't get out of power.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I mean, so goes California, so goes the nation. That'd be a fucking nightmare.
Right, for sure.
But it's my caution is to my left friends. You should be careful about being so sure of yourself. And if you ever say something where your defense is all the scientists agree, or it's the science, you got to do the science, you need to know the science before you start quoting scientists. Because scientists are wrong for centuries about the most important things, right? They thought we lived in a geocentric universe, and then it was a heliocentric universe, and they were burning people at the stake for saying, no, we're not the center of the universe. We're rotating around another body. They were killing people for that during the Inquisition, for being a heretic. How dare you say we're not the center of the universe? Remember that geocentric thing where the Earth is the center of everything? Sure. They saw rotation. They saw everything going around and said, oh, it's all about me. Well, that's what a 2-year-old thinks. Right. And someone was growing up saying, well, it doesn't quite work like that. So, burn him at the stake. Science is almost always wrong, and it is never popularly correct. It is almost never popularly correct. Good science is almost always fringe.
Right.
So for people to say 98% of scientists agree, that's not interesting, and it's not true. And when they talk about following the science for vaccines, and that's why we're going to oppress you, and it's going on all over. I don't know if you saw today, they passed a law. California now, all children going to school have to be vaccinated.
Oh, for in-person learning. Yeah, I read that earlier this morning.
And I was like,
interesting.
Oh, okay. Yep. So let's say we're two black guys and we live in LA, and let's say we're semi-woke. Let's say we're formerly woke. So we were wokety woke, and then we kind of saw the dark side, and then maybe we're like semi-rogue independent thinkers. And we think back to less than 100 years ago when our government was sterilizing and doing sickle cell experiments on black people without them knowing about it. Does that I'd be like, oh no, hell no.
Right.
No, not for me, not for my kids. I mean, there's some, this thing is, it's racist. It's massively ideal. It's what do you call it? Oh, I forget. Oh, it's what happens to get middle age. I forget some of these terms, but it's an oppressive agenda. It's, agree with me or I'm gonna disappear your ass.
Right.
Okay, and they say, oh no, you just lose your job. Okay, you just lose your way of living you've dedicated your life to. There are people who've been teaching for 30 years who are losing their job.
Yeah, well, a lot of disciplines, law enforcement, first responders, right? I mean, how ironic is this? Last year's heroes and heroines, the nurses of the world, who keep this country going with the farmers and the truckers and several other disciplines, are now this year's villains. Yeah, they're getting fired, they're losing their careers and their livelihoods. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I read something just this morning early. I won't exactly quote it, but something about since the mandatory vaccine passport stuff has been implemented in New York, which I think just started the end of for the first of the month. Business is down 40 to 60% off of course, a historic low to begin with. And I mean, it's not going to get any better. You keep having these oppressive rules and legislation. What do they expect people to do? It's crazy.
Well, the problem is they don't get it, but I mean, they're going to get violence out of it. Yeah. And they're not going to get a bunch of people running up the street throwing bottles. They're going to get the people they don't want violent.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's when it gets bad.
No, I mean, you and I have talked about this several times. At the end of the day, at least the way I do it, how does this impact me and my inner circle, right? And that might be a selfish way. You talked about, the centric model. And then I think about, hey, I'm going to stay in my lane until someone comes into my lane, and then there's going to be hell to pay. And we were getting closer and closer to that point. Yeah. And it's a little bit scary. I have conversations with my significant other, family members, and other loved ones and dear friends, and what comes next. And that uncertainty brings to me a level of personal anguish, and then what happens next? And that's the question.
I'm a somewhat conspicuous consumer. I buy stuff. I spend money, especially for the company.
Yeah, for sure.
And I used to help out this carniceria that was right up the street from my last house. I used to go in there all the time, and I bought lunch for the shop. We did that lots of times. Yeah. And I stopped going in there because Mexicans seem to have drunk the Kool-Aid on this fucking mask thing. They are all the fuck in on it around here. And I don't know if it's just they don't want any trouble, or they're just come from a country where you have to follow the rules or someone's going to shake you down. But Mexicans seem all in on the mask wearing. I had the guys come in here doing trades. They all wearing their masks. And nobody else is wearing their fucking masks.
Right.
Here in Arizona, okay?
That's for sure.
And they just basically got into a war with me at the carniceria. I won't even go in there anymore. I won't spend any money with them. You know, Costco got that way. Now they handled it reasonably well, but the carniceria did not handle it well, and it's stopping me from spending money places. And you know,
No, as it should.
yeah, and I don't want to go anywhere.
Right.
You know, I was just talking about a trip to Florida. I was just talking about some vacation plans, and I basically told the girlfriend, I go, hey, I don't fucking going anywhere. What do you mean? I'm like, I'm not getting on an airplane.
Right.
No door opening cocktail server is going to tell me how I need to be and how tight my mask needs to be on my nose. Fuck that.
Right.
I'm not going to some foreign fucking country. You know, I was going to go. I canceled going to Paris to the show there.
Right.
I was going to go to the show to try and raise our awareness of us in that part of Europe.
Yeah, and get a temperature check of what's going on over there.
Yeah. And you know, I got afraid of not being allowed back in my own country.
Right.
Because if you come up positive, you got to sit out for 2 weeks.
Right.
So now you're sitting in a foreign country for a couple of weeks, stumbling through French, trying to find places to go do your testing.
Right.
And they're just letting people just waving them through at the border, and they've got like typhoid and shit, you know.
Right.
So it's madness. This will come back around to bite everybody in the ass.
Yeah, sadly so.
So
well, hopefully it's enough to get some people paying attention and see what changes we can make, because it's a death spiral. I'm not saying it's the end of the republic, but at the end of the day, we are not on the right path.
Midterms, what you call prediction on midterms?
Well, yeah, you know, I don't get that involved in that stuff like you do, but I did read something this morning. Like most folks, you know, I form my opinions based on input from others, and then, I mean, we've got to take it over for sure, and I think it's going to be a big, big transition. There's a lot of people out there that are upset about what's going on, and I would think people are going to hopefully, you know, prove that at the ballot box.
What's this bill? Is it 3.5 trillion?
That's the latest number I heard. I think there's something going on as we speak where it's hit some stumbling block. You know, we had the debt ceiling issues that just recently took place, and of course now this nonsense infrastructure bill, which doesn't seem to have a whole bunch of important infrastructure stuff in it.
Like, you know what? If they wanted to spend 3.5 trillion and it was straight up competitive contracts for infrastructure, I might actually go for it. I'm not like, you know, we could rebuild our country because that'll help us for 100 years.
Yeah, no, and a lot of the stuff needs to be done. You see these same reports I do. I mean,
bridges
and
electrical system, bridge. I mean, you know, dams, and I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a empire with cracks.
For sure.
And if someone said, "We're going to go 3.5 trillion in, and we're going to basically do a remodel on the United States," because you can for 3.5 trillion dollars.
Yeah, no, it's a big number.
But then the way they do it,
yeah,
if they're just going to issue it to certain groups, or is it just going to be basically open competitive bidding to fix stuff in America?
Yeah, well, that's not how it's going to be. We know there'll be a bunch of earmarks and pork belly spending, et cetera.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, there's two people kind of holding the line right now, which means if it was just two people, that's the two willing to say it in the news. There's a bunch who are on the fence and not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
You got Kristen Sinema out of Arizona,
right? Who
is, you know, they always say, oh, Arizona are just a bunch of independent free thinkers. No, every now and then some ding-dong Democrat makes it to office and they want to hold on, and the rest of us go, well, there's only one way you hold on here.
Right.
You leave our guns alone, and less is more.
Right.
So she seems to be holding the line on the 3.5 trillion, and so does Joe Manchin out of West Virginia. So, you know, you can write as many bills like you have a supermajority or like you have a mandate from America to lead. Right. And you can listen to NBC and CBS and, you know, the lamestream media and think that you should be changing the country. But the truth is, the only reason you won is the other guy was kind of polarizing. Americans don't like being told the truth.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
You know, and I love Trump. I'm mad at him for screwing up the first debate. I'm mad at him for messaging. I'm mad at him for his delivery. And I absolutely love the guy.
Yeah, well, that's who he is, though.
Right. But I'm mad that, and I'm mad at just middle America for being so fucking, and you know what? I'm mad at upper class America for being so fucking stupid.
Yeah. What I think about it is it now, looking back, of course, hindsight being 2020, for all the folks that voted for Biden and the large percentage that voted for him because they had such disdain for the other candidate, we're mad. They're fucking embarrassed. What's worse? Because you talk about holiday conversations, and I'll be having a couple of them with folks that I know who they voted for, and to be able to look them in the eye and just have this smirk on my face, which I will have, and think, how do you feel now? Because it's been obviously a travesty.
I'd rather our country be doing better than me be right.
Yeah, for sure. No, at the end of the day, of course.
I'm so frustrated because, they said how, the left decried him for pissing off our enemies, or pissing off our allies. Our allies right now don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
We abandoned them in our policy in East, into the Middle East.
Right.
Unilaterally just didn't say a goddamn thing.
Right.
They woke up and found out about it with airplanes pulling people out of the country, right?
Yeah.
We cut this deal. We got this great idea to make this Pacific Partnership with United States, Australia, New Zealand, and England, and this pact to try to be a counterweight to the rising hegemony of China in the Pacific, right? Or the rising reach for it.
Oh,
And in the middle of it, I don't know if you know, the Biden administration awarded this nuclear sub deal to the Australians who had agreed to buy French submarines.
Right.
So we didn't even tell the French. The French heard about it in the news.
Yeah.
Trump was cutting deals, and everyone rumbled about it, but they were deals that were better. And we're just screwing things up without thinking about any consequences right now. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, neither have I. It's saddening.
To have a Democrat need to apologize for bad action. I mean, we have to apologize for what we did. It's an error. Like, it's an apologizable error to take one of your allies, the French or the British, and undercut big military sales that help their country. Like, that's a boo-boo.
Right.
That should have been talked about beforehand, and there should have been some deal making, like the art of the deal.
Right.
Orange Badman would have said, all right, we're doing this, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a deal that's going to make up for that.
Right.
And it gives them something.
Yeah.
We just unilaterally are fucking shit up. And I'm scratching my head. I'm not hopeless, but I'm sad about it.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Because many people are. And then what do you do about it? Midterms are going to be, I think, a start along a journey. Because just like we didn't get here overnight, right? This isn't all just Biden and his administration. They're obviously the current ones that hold the seat. But it took us decades to get here, and it's going to take us decades to get out. I just don't know if we have decades.
I see a bunch of, just like the Treaty of Versailles in World War I really hurt the Germans irreparably and basically caused World War II to happen. I see racism at the core of one response to the next that got us to where we are right now. It's really funny. We elected a guy because of his color who was not qualified for the job.
Right.
And he didn't utterly fuck it up, but he didn't do anything really well. And then we elected him again. And that, not because he was black. And the left always says everyone's mad they didn't like him because he was black. I mean, I voted for him the first time, as I've said repeatedly. I said, well, look, I just get it. Let's get it done. So now we can just character, no color thing. Just who's the best.
Right.
And I voted for him out of race apology or whatever you want to call it. White shame, white guilt, whatever you want to call it.
Well, some of it was a function of his opponent, right? I mean, you're not the biggest McCain fan.
I was no. McCain couldn't get in the ground fast enough in my universe. Right. And then he went and picked Sarah Palin, who I was just like, oh my, okay, as if it wasn't bad enough, that's your first executive call. Right. Survey says not on the board, as what's his name is saying on the family. Yeah, Richard Dawson. Yeah. Not on the board. And so we basically apologetically elected a guy who had no business in public office.
Right.
None. His resume read more like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and that vein of guy who was kind of a community organizer and kind of full of shit and a little bit of a huckster.
Yeah. And he was well spoken, and it made the difference.
And I find that racist, what you just said. He wasn't well spoken. He spoke just like George Bush. If you go back and close your black or white eyes and what you expect, and he may expect like a gangster, and I listen to him, I go, no, he's not really a good speaker at all. He just didn't speak like a hoodlum.
Okay.
Anyway, so we have this Jim Crow, civil rights, systemic racism that melts away over the decades, this apologetic election of a guy, and then it happened again, and the response is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of racism. It was like enough identifying, enough good feelings. I want somebody who can build buildings and fix shit.
Right.
And so we got the ultimate pragmatist. I mean, talk about a guy who'll make a deal across. You've heard me say this. The Democrats screwed up. They've never had a Republican in office more willing to make a deal than him.
Right. And deals he made.
And they blew it.
Right.
Like every piece of it, they wanted this big, they want this big infrastructure bill. He wanted to do an infrastructure bill. Well, they just didn't want him to look good.
Right.
So they're more concerned with looking good. They would rather fail the country
right.
than have anybody else but them look good, which is, that's a failed paradigm.
Yeah, no, that's their posturing, and it's been that way for quite some time.
And the Republicans are the exact same, which is why we're trying to purge their ranks right now, fucking rhinos.
Yeah. Can't happen fast enough.
I notice the women around me in my life are just as pissed off as I am. Same in you?
Oh, for sure. I've got a really small inner circle, and the couple that matter most are... Actually, it's funny. You think that they'd be trying to keep me on the rails. It's actually the opposite. They do some of that, don't get me wrong, because I might be off of them. But at the end of the day, more of my time is spent saying, hey, that whole lane construct we talked about, it, whatever commercial I ripped that off from. I think it was a tattoo commercial or something. Yeah, no, they're upset, and rightfully so.
Well, I just think that everybody needs to sit back. If you're a lefty, you need to take a little step back from your perch of righteousness, because none of us are so right. None of us are so perfect. We are all flawed. Our ideas are flawed. Most of what we think has some error in it and some continuum upon which you could place it of correctness. And people are acting like they have it on the 10 Commandments right down from Moses off the mountain, carved by the Almighty himself in granite. They've gotten inflexible and unrealistic, and they're starting to do stuff to try and wipe out their adversaries. And one of the tenets of the Republic is we fight, we win and we lose, then we come together and run the country. We don't fight and then win or lose and then destroy the country.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I have not elected anyone ever to fundamentally tear down the nation. And that's what's going on right now. We're letting extremists and blacks who've fallen into this and leftists who've fallen into this Marxist trap, they're being suckered right now. They're going to wake up really embarrassed. And the oppressing that they're doing, you can't take 40% of the talent in this country and oppress them out of work.
Right.
You can't oppress them because of their ideas. You can't oppress them into unemployment. You make that many people's families impacted, maybe desperate or injured, and there's a price to pay for it, and it will be awful. And maybe it's revenge.
Yeah, they can do it. They just won't be able to do it, hopefully, for much longer, because it's happening now, right? I mean, there's a phrase in my old industry: numbers don't lie, but they never tell the whole story. So right now, the numbers that we're talking about, approval ratings, dissatisfaction ratings, inflation, all this kind of stuff, the economic indicators that are typically lagging, but what they're pointing towards, the market hasn't really responded fully yet, but it's always a little bit behind. You just can't argue with these numbers and people's dissatisfaction. So the midterms are going to matter most. And then, as everyone knows, whatever happens with all these election audits, we've talked about this, there's probably not going to be time to get anything done about it, because about a year before you're running for office, you have to announce your candidacy. There's a statement that basically says you want to be a candidate for the least amount of time possible.
Right.
If Trump, let's say he's going to run, I mean, he hasn't obviously made an official announcement yet to my knowledge, but everyone's leaning towards that. He would ideally like to announce at the last
6 months before the election.
So we're almost a year into his term now. There's another year of bullshit probably going on. Then they're going to be on the campaign trail. He's clearly not going to run again for sure, meaning Sleepy Joe.
Because he's going to have to run it. He's going to have to run. He didn't run this time. They ran him.
Right. For sure. And
well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Listen, I think that both chambers are going to flip hard Republican after this, because you can't hijack the country without a big response. And you can't go in saying that you're going to do all this stuff and then overreach so badly. We've seen this in sports. You can't overreach your skill set.
Right.
You can't overreach your capability, or you get your ass handed to you.
Yeah, you get hurt, or you lose.
Pilots that overreach get dead.
Right.
Right. Financial people that overreach jump off buildings when it happens. It's inevitable.
Right.
Investors at every level, you can't overreach. If you overreach your grasp, you will fall on your face. And they're overreaching like they have a mandate from the people to change the country.
Yeah.
And they've never been so wrong and been so radically in step with each other wrong.
Yeah. What's really unfortunate about this is the consequences are so unprecedented, right? If you do that in your personal life, in your home life, your family obviously takes the hit. Now
Right.
we're talking about communities, countries, world. That's what's so disheartening to me. I think about all the folks that came before us and what they did to get us where we are today and how it's being unraveled. It's saddening, as I said earlier.
Let's talk about this movie for a minute.
Yeah, it's solid. I watched it the other day. City of Lies.
So give everybody kind of the 2-second synopsis on it.
Yeah, it's an interesting. You had referred it to me as you often do, and it's about basically the cover up and the ongoing cover up, apparently, of the assassination of Biggie Smalls, and then the Tupac Biggie connection and how that all went down. And it's Death Row Records and Suge Knight, I think is the fellow's name. It's really interesting. It's entertaining. It's well done. It's got some big name people in it. You know those names better than I do. And I watched it the other night, actually early mornings when I usually watch that stuff, and it's terrific. You said it was good, and it was better than advertised. The investigation, to my knowledge, is still open.
Yep, they've left it open so they can leave it sealed.
Yeah, so that way some stuff is suppressed. We just talked about oppression earlier, and it's really interesting. And there's no other suspects, and and you start seeing the evidence. Now it's a Hollywood movie, based on true events, but there's obviously some interpretation and some probably drama added for effect. But if 80% of it's true and accurate,
shit, if half of it's true, if half of it's true, that's why they're oppressing it.
Right, for sure. There was injustice done.
Because it looks like there was a gang within the LA Police Department.
Yep.
It looks like the gang was thoroughly employed by former drug dealers, current drug dealers, and record producers.
Yeah.
Who were basically running prostitution and drug games while doing records and rap music. I mean, these guys, this must have been fun to work. I mean, it must have been fun to work with these guys.
A fly on the wall would have been not a bad time.
I mean, just the camera, just like, oh my God, look what they're doing now. We could have just made a TV show out of that.
For sure.
And it would have been called Black Lives Matter. It would have been so fantastic. All right, well, listen, if you guys get a chance, you should watch Body of Lies, right?
City of Lies.
City of Lies. Fantastic movie, and you played some basketball, right?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Right. So he likes, girls with a little back. He likes a little color in his life.
I'm not sure where this is going.
Yeah, I know. All my buddies who played basketball, they all have very, very the colors of Benetton taste in women. How's that?
I remember the Benetton store on the Washington Street Mall in Cape May.
Oh my God, Cape May. So, Jeff, thanks for stopping in on Friday and rapping with me a little bit. We missed lunch today.
We did.
Friday, we do lunch every day, but Tuesday and Fridays are going out on the town lunch day.
We'll get back on schedule. We got a lot going on.
My dad came in today. He's all post COVID, and he's a little greener. He's a little green around the gills. He's still not all the way back.
Yeah, he. I hope he was better than last week when I saw him.
Yeah, he's a little better, but he's got this kind of up and down thing going on.
Yeah, well, that's systemic probably.
Yeah. Jenny's got it at home right now. She's been. I guess they should be quarantined.
Oh. Boy.
Yeah. She's got it at home. I think she's day 8 right now.
Yeah, I should fuck it.
Yeah. She says, we go to the Oktoberfest. I go, tomorrow? You want to go to Oktoberfest tomorrow? I'm like, no. She's like, well, I don't want us to stay in. I go, well, I'm not staying in, but you are. You can't go to Oktoberfest.
I'll have to figure that out.
So I guess my antibodies are pretty strong.
Makes sense.
Because I've had it a couple times.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You got anything exciting going on this weekend?
We are heading down to Tucson for a little quick getaway weekend. We've got some horse stuff tonight and tomorrow. New car for Dawn's son that's getting delivered tomorrow. I don't think he's watching the broadcast. We shouldn't ruin the surprise.
Nice. If he is watching it.
Good for him. Yeah.
Yeah. If he is watching, congratulations, young man. A little truth on your Friday.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so no, we're local. So quiet, local, enjoying the change in the weather. Gosh, it was 60 degrees last night, as we talked about earlier up at the barn. So
it was so funny. The kids came in last night and they're like, hey, Dad, we got to go find our windbreakers or something. It's kind of chilly outside. Right. I'm like, so I walk out. I'm like, hey, look, it's really nice.
Yeah, 60 degrees.
You don't need a jacket. They just wanted to wear one,
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, have a great weekend. Everybody else, Greg Medford, Jeff O'Prandy from here at the Shack 3 in Phoenix, Arizona. We just thought we'd talk a little bit about, you know what we should do? We should do book and movie wrap-ups because we've had a lot of conversations about some books and movies over time. And I was just thinking about, being careful. My grandfather used to say, they'll get theirs when someone would do something, and I'd be like, we should. And he's like, don't do nothing, grandson. They'll get theirs. It comes back around. Everything we do comes back around. The people call it karma. People call it quiet justice. People call it fate. People call it the hand of God. But it comes back around. Yeah. You oppress a third of America because we won't drink the Kool-Aid. It's going to come back around, and I'm afraid of what it's going to be because, I'm going to be on the side of those folks when it happens, and I don't want us getting revenge, but it will happen.
Especially if it's going to be disproportional, which it most likely will be, because they've pissed off a lot of people like us that have been sitting quiet, doing our thing.
Paying our taxes and working.
Yeah. Doing what you're supposed to be doing to support, economy and family and your fellow countrymen, as you talk about all the time. And, you talk about that and whether a time will come, but I'm worried about it as well. That's why that whole lane construct seems to keep me moving forward, because if not, I'm not quite sure what would happen.
We're doing something right now, and people don't really realize it, but, I got to be in the military, and some of the guys in the shop got to be in the military and kind of serve the country a little bit, get some sort of Boy Scout merit badge for that, and most of the shop hasn't. But we're actually all serving the country right now. We're doing something kind of interesting. We're taking on jobs that we don't need to take on, like for Jack Wolf.
Oh, the OEM work, yeah.
Yeah, like for, our guys out in California and a couple other companies that are chatting about it now. We're doing that, and it's, we had a couple meetings about it today, and I'm like, man, it's going to be a heavy lift to make this happen. It's kind of stressful on me. And it's financially stressful. It's going to work out, but it's financially stressful to make it happen, right?
Well, and you're trying to make a difference. We don't need to, as you know, and it's something we've talked about as our strategy and, diversifying the company. And
these dollars, if they leave the country, they'll never come back.
Right, for sure.
And because people get their business model, they get used to that flow, and they won't change.
Yeah.
Because how many people insource? Almost nobody.
Yeah, no, it was funny. When this bullshit first hit, right now, we're coming up on, soon to be 2 years. Everyone talked about supply chains in China and diversifying your supply chains. We had all that stuff being talked about, and I've seen now little to nothing about it. Arizona seems to be leading the way on some of that stuff. And of course, we've taken some really proactive steps, as you know, by looking at our suppliers and where we get our stuff and how do we diversify. But, it'll become a fad. It'll be forgotten about. And when this happens again or something substantially similar, people will be like, God, we did this 20 or 30 years ago. What the fuck? Why are we so tied? I mean, this China thing's for real. And I think every dollar we prevent from getting invested in their country is a dollar worth going after.
It's funny. People, I've been asked a lot as I've been talking politics, and I've had politicos come in here and meet with me and chat with me. That like, hey, what would you do? What do you think? What do you like about what's happening? What do you not like about what's happening? And the couple things you can do protectionist things, right, to block against China. And as Americans, we seem to not like protectionist things. We seem to like
it's a sign
freedom
of
and competition.
Yeah.
But there is something else you can do, and we haven't been doing it. So we're talking about, let's say, this $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, and they're talking about $800 million of it being for infrastructure, and the other $2.7 trillion being for social agenda.
Right.
Imagine if you took $1 trillion of that 3.5 infrastructure bill and you made it for manufacturing infrastructure. Imagine if you gave states grants for vocational manufacturing training. And there are great models for it around the Detroit area. Yeah. There's great models for it in places around the country in Ohio. Imagine if you invested money in actual modern manufacturing equipment. What if you used, let's say this, $500 billion as security to write loans at 1% interest to American manufacturing businesses, and they would turn into grants at the end of 10 years. So we will loan you X amount of money to make what you're going to make. Imagine if somebody came to us and said, Greg, we'll loan you $3 million at 1%. I'd be like, okay, I'll take the money.
Sure.
And you know what I'd do with it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't up my salary. I'd
plant
fucking
equipment.
Yeah, I'd knock the wall down, add 10,000 square feet to the building, put 50 more machines here, and hire 35 more guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
or buy another building and
or make the move and do and you can't have a big building that's empty. You got to have a big building. You got to fill it with shit.
Yeah.
I'm not against. This is what I guess some people They like to take these extremes. I'm not against doing something that's great for the country. I just don't agree with what those things are.
Yeah.
And I think us all being racially aware salves our worst sentiments, our most petty sentiments. And if I was a black father, I'd be wanting to teach my kids those are petty. Don't let that racist stuff be the thing that stops you in life. Step over that.
Right.
That's small thinking, small-mindedness.
Right.
I saw that video from the 1950s on selling to the Negro today. And it was funny. As you watch it, everything they said about it's true for white people too.
Yeah.
They would say, oh, the Negro buyer wants to profile their brand and have their friends approve and show status. I'm like, that's the same with the white buyer. That's that's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It completely undifferent.
Yeah, but it's interesting from 1954, which when that video was produced.
Yeah. Well, I've just I see the thing. I think I see what the founding fathers saw, and I think you see it too. There's only one thing that saves the country. It is commerce and industrious people making stuff that the world wants. And the natural state of humans is freedom when you see it.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of people who've been free so long they don't know anything else and they're spoiled. Ask anybody in South America where they want to go.
Well, just this week, I get a call and an email from someone in our inner circle who's got a family member who was accosted in a fourth world country. He's a dual citizen of two neighboring countries. He got accosted.
This is the Venezuela thing, right?
Yeah. And then was threatened because they realized he might have some access to, money, family and friends in the U.S. He's been getting followed. So the conversation I had with said person was,
oh, and the guy's been getting the shit beat up out of him.
Yeah, no, this isn't like someone just
like we're going to beat you up every day till you get money.
Right. The old, the bully, model on the playground, but times your life.
Right. So it's somewhere between lunch money and kidnapping.
Yeah,
it's right in the middle.
So the guy gets beat up and he's fearful for his life, so much to the fact that he's reaching out to friends and family in the U.S. of, hey, do you have any contacts, resources? And, writing the check's not going to solve the problem because that's easy to fucking do. But the conversation I had, which was interesting, the point I want to make is when I was corresponding with the person who was being, I guess, his liaison, I said, well, it looks like the guy's choices, because whatever's going on in Venezuela right now, as that place is obviously unraveled to a great extent. They're revoking people's passports apparently so that they can't flee the country because you talk about oppression, et cetera.
Right.
And he's trying to get into Colombia, which, as many people know, probably has substantially similar things going on. But it's a path to getting out where he is. And these people are apparently following, of course, local law enforcement is of no value. So I said to him, well, what's he going to do? And he said, well, if he doesn't come up with the money, he's just going to continue to get beat up. I said, well, why doesn't he kill him or fight back? I might have used some different words. And the person's response was, and I know this person well, said, well, yeah, you and I would say that. And that's a reasonable outcome and thought process. But it wasn't even in his realm of consciousness. It's like, well, what are you talking about? You're getting accosted.
Go get a gun.
Yeah, and whether you can or cannot is not this, but I mean, defend yourself. And you talk about things that are taken for granted, and that was a stark reminder of how far we've come and how quickly and how far we are heading in the wrong direction.
And how much the Second Amendment matters, because as they come for us, and they will.
Yeah.
There's no difference. I've talked about it on a podcast this week already. When they start shutting down your ideas, and when you see major social media just shutting down opposing viewpoints, not crude, not foul, not porn, not threatening.
Right.
They're just shutting down opposing viewpoints. When we're not even free to have ideas, anything's possible.
Yeah.
People
nothing's off the table.
That's right. People say, how could the Holocaust happen? How could it happen? This is how it happens. When opposing views are not allowed to be heard loud.
Yeah, like what the hell's going on in Australia, for Christ's sake?
Right. And they're just, nobody wants to cover that in the news. That's the biggest news in the Western world right now, in my opinion.
Oh.
And it's within 20 years of them losing their guns.
Yeah.
Because they can't pull that shit here.
No, for sure.
They could try in California, but they can't try it here. This place would be
there's
cops would be like, no, we're not going to go do that. That's insane.
Well, we say that, and then we look at who's being purged from these entities, right? You talked about the other day. Who are the folks that are leaving law enforcement and military, and it's the people
who uphold and swore to the Constitution.
Right. So as they get purged out of the system, to your point, then those are the folks we were counting on say, hey, if this ever turned into this, and I got to knock on my neighbor's door and do this, that's not going to happen. Well, those people are leaving.
Right.
And they're voting with their feet.
But the folks who are left are ideologues. And this is what I was going to say earlier. Ideologues can be shifted, and you can get caught in the crossfire when they will devour their own. It will happen.
For sure.
And then we'll get good leadership back in, and we'll fill it back up with people who love America.
Well,
that's my hope.
Yeah, same here. I mean, there's two ways you respond, right? Reality either responds to you or it imposes itself on you, or you respond to it. And I'd rather be on the other direction of that.
Jesus, my dad said a quote to me of Charles Bukowski while we were at lunch, and I almost fucking fell off my bar stool. My dad said, well, Bukowski said, nature does in us what it will, and we get what's left. And I was like, he's like, nature will take its course with us, and we only get a say in what's left. And I was like, oh, holy smokes. And, that's like the Greek, the gods versus self-determination. That's all said in one fucking line of a drunk beatnik poet. Awesome. All right, we'll leave it with a Charles Bukowski quote for your Friday and for your weekend. Thanks for stopping in, you guys. We're going to bounce and have a great weekend. Thanks for stepping in, Jeff.
Thanks.
Yeah, later.
Yeah, Papa and Plum. Close like Starsky and Hutch, stick to clutch. Yeah, I squeeze 3 at your cherry M3. Bang every MC easily.
Take that.
Recently, niggas frontin' ain't saying nothing, so I just speak my peace. Keep my peace. Cubans with the Jesus peace. With my peace. Packing, asking who want it. You got it, nigga, flaunt it. That Brooklyn bullshit, we on it.
Biggie, biggie, biggie.